We're live. Hello. Welcome back. New host. Yeah, I got to start here. Crazy ending of the game, huh? Two turnovers to end the game from both teams. Pretty sloppy coaching from John Gruden. Gotta say, the delay of game was unnecessary. Alex Leatherwood with the false start. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation as a debut first round pick, but
Yeah, that
overall,
was dumb.
yeah, the delay game was stupid as well. You're gonna take a field goal, spike it or something, but worked out in the end. The Ravens were desperate, called a all out blitz, zero blitz, and
You guys think it was the right play call to throw it on the 3rd and 5?
talking about
Absolutely.
I do too.
Oh, no,
I think you got to
wait.
give yourself a chance to get to the end zone.
I think my audio is off for a portion of that, so we're back now. I'm sure all our viewers are letting us know right now how I wasn't talking that entire time.
so for the entirety of it.
Anyway, let's run it back. We're back. Bang bang. Kyle Yoshino is joining us for instant breakdown of the Raiders game. Kyle, what are your thoughts, man? That was intense, insane, everything you could describe. Everything you would want out of a Monday night game, that was it.
That was a great first opening Monday night game in the new Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas. What an electric atmosphere. I mean, if you watched Thursday's show, you would have seen Raiders plus 5.5 and money line. Easy cash, never a doubt whatsoever.
Easy cashing at the Thursday night show.
Absolutely electric.
Ala, what were your thoughts, man?
I gotta agree, man. I thought you had everything you wanted. You got an overtime game, 2 finishes essentially with the Brian Edwards touchdown. They had to take everybody off the field. 2 turnovers to end the game. I think Derek Carr, pretty impressive game in total. You could argue that he outplayed Lamar Jackson, or Lamar Jackson probably working with a little bit less weapons. You got a lot of stars on both sides of the field. A couple questionable plays from Marlon Humphrey, didn't have a great day. And I thought Darren Waller was impressive. I thought the Raiders looked good. I think a lot of people have them at the bottom of the AFC West, and maybe that's a little unfair. So I like it. It's a competitive season in the NFL this year.
I thought it was like a tale of two halves, or like a fourth quarter overtime and everything else, because Derek Carr looked bad, to be honest. He just looked bad for most of the game. And not to mention his receivers couldn't get open. The offense just looked like it was struggling the whole time. And then out of nowhere, everyone starts making plays, man. Braylon Edwards went off. I mean, Waller was making plays the whole time, but even he had some drops. And he also got like 25 targets, so I don't know, man. The Raiders, it was just a perfect storm. That was quite a game.
I think the script lined up perfectly for the Raiders. I mean, Carr looked terrible until like the last drive of the game, and then in overtime. Like he was terrible before that. Like if you didn't have those 2 drives, everybody would be like, "Oh wow, Carr is not good. Carr is not good." Blah blah blah. But on the other side of the ball, the Raiders D line, which was a surprise.
They played well.
Or not really. They played really well. Carl Nassib, of course, Max Crosby was talking about him the whole time. It was a depleted Ravens O-line, though.
Yeah.
They did not play good.
And Alejandro Villanueva is just awful.
I mean, he's just ancient at this point. He was
got a
good,
question
like 5 years ago.
He's bad. And like the storyline coming in was supposed to be the Ravens D-line against the Raiders O-line. Raiders O-line bringing in 4 new starters this year. And it was just the opposite, which I was not expecting at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you guys think about the injuries? You think if the Ravens were healthy, that game's different? They were up for most of the game. You think that maybe they had the best running out the clock and controlling it if they had J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that Marcus Peters made a difference too? Obviously the Brian Edwards play was on escaping my name right now, but he was the quarterback.
Avery?
Avery? Yeah.
So you got to think that Marcus Peters would have been there instead. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
There's no telling that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I gotta say, definitely. I think there were some times early on in the game you saw some miscommunications between the running backs and Lamar. I think that had a small effect. I mean, obviously, like having your backup cornerback is not ideal compared to Marcus Peters, and there were some plays where they did get beat, so you never know. who's gonna win, but those things make an impact, of course.
Yeah, I agree. Those things definitely make an impact, but it's not like for sure Marcus Peters would have been on him. And then he got picked, right? Zay Jones got open because he got picked by his own guy. It wasn't really the guy's fault. But then, like, as far as Darren Waller going off, they're not going to have Peters on him anyways, most likely. Yeah. He's just a matchup nightmare, like, for the linebackers. And so I think his success still would have been there.
I was more referencing the Brian Edwards play, the touchdown on third and 5, I think it was. Called back.
Yeah, that's true. If Marcus Peters was there, like, he definitely has a better chance of making that play.
That was a great throw by Carr, honestly. It was back shoulder the whole time. The cornerback wasn't turned.
Yeah, it was so weird. Carr had so many throws early in the game. He just had little, like, drag routes. He's throwing behind the guy 5 yards. Like, I was not expecting him to make those throws down the stretch.
Yeah, the last drive before in the end of regulation, that throw to Brian Edwards before the field goal kick.
2 of those throws, the last 2 throws.
Tight windows, and he darted the ball right in there. Lots to talk about Brian Edwards, too. Is Brian Edwards the elite fantasy wide receiver? Is he a pickup? Could he finish top 20 this year? I don't know, man.
Didn't he have, like, only 1 target through, like, halfway the fourth quarter?
Yeah,
he looks
but then he got targeted on every central down.
I only trust Waller as a fantasy target, which you could hear more about in our new fantasy show debuting soon.
We'll be talking about that likely tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever we get that kicked off. What a game. Anyway, so, this whole show, we're recapping NFL Week 1, what went down, some of the bigger storylines. Obviously, we don't want to overreact. We got a cool segment coming up. It's gonna be a fun time. Kyle, are you joining us today?
No, I gotta head out. I just want to say thanks for having me on for this quick little summary of the game. Check out the fantasy show, new coming. Check out Thursdays again, gambling show, the responsible bet. That would have been Raiders money line, easy money, never a doubt. All right, have a good show, guys.
All right.
Never a doubt. See ya.
Bye, Kyle. All right, let's move on. We got a lot to talk about today. So let's first start out with the Eagles and the Texans. I thought that was one of the biggest surprises of the weekend. We've been hearing all offseason the Eagles are going to struggle. They, obviously. They lost a lot of talent. They lost their quarterback. There's question marks at quarterback. There's question marks all along their roster. There's a new coach who stirred up some controversy with his press conference that people were not approving of. And then we got the Texans, on the other hand, who people are projecting to be 0-17. New coach, no Deshaun Watson. We don't need to touch on that. Overall, top to bottom, pretty lackluster roster. A lot of vets who are past their prime or trying. And both of them honestly dominated. The Eagles won 32-6, I believe. They dominated the line of scrimmage. The Falcons, which should be concerned. And the Texans, they were up, I believe, 27-7 in the first half. Jacksonville looked sorry. Urban Meyer looked lost. What do you got to think? What do you got to say on those?
Yeah, I think it's honestly more concerning for the Falcons and the Jaguars and more about the Texans, but because they won, let's talk about both of the winning teams. I think the Texans really surprised a lot of people. You saw the Eagles were a question mark. We didn't know how they would be. We know they had talent on their roster, though. They're bringing in Jalen Reagor's going to start the season, who was a top pick last year for the Eagles. And then, obviously, they went in and got Devonta Smith in the first round, big name. You had Miles Sanders already. You had a lot of these guys first 3 round, day 1, day 2 guys that were finally coming in. And obviously Jalen Hurts is a big question mark finally starting in the year. Absolutely. And they pretty much answered on that, man. Jalen Hurts looked like the best quarterback in the week, you could argue. I mean, he hit every throw. He was good. He made smart decisions. I mean, I don't know how you can attribute that to as much as the Eagles' success, or maybe the Falcons just had the worst defense of all time. They played pretty bad. overreaction there, but the Falcons defense definitely is a big question mark, especially after losing Dan Quinn, who's a defensive guy. They've been dealing with injuries almost the last 5 years straight, and I don't know about the Falcons, which is why I'm more concerned about the losing teams than maybe praising the winning teams. I think talking about the Texans, maybe we need to give Tyrod Taylor a
that's
little
fair,
more.
but I gotta give a shout out to the Eagles. I gotta give a shout out to Nick Sirianni and Coach Sully or Cullen. Who is it out in Texas?
Edward Cullen, I think the Ravens wide receiver coach. Nick Sirianni and Edward Cullen were probably the two. I
don't know if it's Edward. I think it's like Nick. Oh no, yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah. So I mean, just shout out to those guys. It takes a lot of guts to lead, a team who's projected to be so bad. It's not Edward Cullen, but it takes a lot of guts to lead a team to do.
David Culley.
David Culley. Sorry.
Edward Cullen is actually the Robert
vampire.
Pattinson.
Yeah.
That's funny for me.
And so I think credit where credit is due. Credit where credit is due.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into the year, I think you would argue that those are the two most questionable hires. Had no coordinator experience for either of them, I'm pretty sure. So, pretty positive look. Tyrod Taylor, like I was talking about earlier. I mean, he's supposed to be starter last 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost his job to the Browns after an unfortunate injury. Obviously, the scandal with the punctured lung last year.
Yeah.
And he's essentially should have been the starter every single year of his career. And now he's starting again, and he played pretty well. I mean, 26 carries to Mark Ingram. I mean, that's crazy. How dominant were they? The Texans could just ran the ball all day on the Jaguars. It's a young, questionable team. I mean, T-Law had his moments, but he definitely was missing high on almost every throw.
He was struggling.
I mean, he was still poised in the pocket.
He looked like a rookie. I mean,
he did look like a rookie, but he definitely has some fundamental issues. Still easily, I think, after week one. We'll talk about the quarterbacks maybe more in total. But I think week one, I still think you look at him as the best prospect. But he was definitely missing high on a lot of throws, which was a big issue. A couple of his picks were super questionable decisions. But, when you're down that much against the team you should be, maybe that's what you try to do. Hero ball, obviously the story is hasn't lost a game since middle school, something like that. Regular season game. So a lot to talk about with those two teams. Maybe all four of those teams are maybe the Falcons and the Jaguars are going to be the two worst teams in the league. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if they're. We'll see what happens, but that's what it's projecting with the Eagles and Texans, kind of bouncing back. It's interesting. So let's move on to the next big storyline. The NFC West went 4-0 this week. They were as good as expected, as good as advertised. The Cardinals blew out the Titans. Seahawks controlled the Colts. Rams blew out the Bears. And who's last? The Niners.
A little bit of a
Niners
scare.
blew out the Lions and then almost lost it, but it is what it is. I mean, top to bottom, this division looks absolutely terrifying.
It really does. There's a lot to say about the NFC West. I mean, I can't imagine being the division that plays all of them, and they're going to be their own worst nightmares. I think you could argue that the after week one, maybe including the Saints, that those are the four most impressive teams in the weekend. The Niners had a little bit of scare, but I mean they're up 41-10 at one point in the fourth quarter. Even with their sloppy play, they were still pretty in control of that game to the end.
I mean, who do you think made the biggest statement?
I think it's got to be the Cardinals. I think, like I mentioned in the last week, I mentioned Chandler Jones coming back, and I mean, holy Chandler Jones, what a player!
Dude, Chandler Jones, honestly, he looked like me against Iolani back in the day. It was just
that's some high praise.
No, I'm just kidding. It was just sack after sack after sack after sack.
I think Chandler Jones has consistently been one of the most underrated players of the last 10 years, and I think I'm glad to see him succeed. I just wish it wasn't for the Cardinals. And I think maybe if he played for a bigger market team and a team that won more, that he would be up there with Von Miller and Khalil Mack, because I think he's as good as those guys. And I think he showed it against the Titans, and I don't see why he can't be the sack leader like he was 2 years ago. And with that, I mean, J.J. Watt.
He kind of reminds me or he doesn't, but there's a guy in the NFC West who kind of reminds me of him, is Darryl Taylor, who is just like a rising player for the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, he had a monstrous sack on basically his first ever game in the NFL, his rookie debut. So there's a lot of juiciness over there, if you ask me. But you know who I got to disagree with you. I think the most impressive to me was the Rams, because I think their biggest weakness forever since they've been good, which is basically since Sean McVay joined the team, it's been Jared Goff. And Matt Stafford was very impressive. He made the deep throws that we never even saw Jared Goff attempt in this offense. So when Matt Stafford is able to stretch the field with the receivers they have, who are able to stretch the field, that being Jefferson, Kupp, Woods.
South, just looking at divisions in a whole. Maybe not the Panthers or the Falcons too much. We probably felt the Bucs were going to run away with that division, but it's hard to argue with the statement made by. We'll run over that game later, but just going over these divisions. The AFC West, obviously, now that they went undefeated as well. Not the only division to go undefeated.
Nope.
NFC West and AFC West both went undefeated this week. Less dominant victories, of course, but in the end, they both did.
Now let's transition to the next segment, Ala. You ready?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so this next segment is called Just Week 1, and it is sponsored by U.S. Oil and Refinery. And so let me just talk a little bit about our sponsor. U.S. Oil and Refinery supplies the Pacific Northwest with a large percentage of its oil. Don't tear them down yet. Woo! All right, thank you. Shout out to U.S. Oil and Refinery while we jump into this quick segment. All right, so the segment today is Real or Just Week 1. We want to know your opinion, Ala, on whether what happened in Week 1 is the truth or is it just Week 1. We'll first start out with the gentleman. Arizona Cardinals, are they Super Bowl contenders or not? After blowing out the Titans 38-13 behind Murray's 5 TDs, what are we thinking about the Cardinals now?
I'm all in on the Cardinals. I think they're a playoff contender for sure, and I think if they make the playoffs, they're ready to make a dark horse. It'll be tougher to make the playoffs than it will be to win the Super Bowl, I think.
I agree. Dark horse contender. What about the Titans? Are they bottom feeders of the AFC South now? I mean, we just saw them get blown out 38-13. They gave up 6 sacks and only had 3 catches from their new addition, Julio Jones.
I think this is an overreaction. I think the Titans are still easily contenders in the AFC South. Got pretty lucky with the results, too, with Colts losing. Julio Jones and Ryan Tannehill just looked at the second off. I think they get that by the end of the year. It's obviously the first time they play together, no preseason.
I think we're 2 for 2. I think this is just Week 1. They're just feeling things out. Taylor Lewan coming off an injury, they'll be back to normal.
Yeah, Taylor Lewan shot out his tweet, hilarious, but I should be working on it more. He got embarrassed.
Eagles, NFC East players, are they in contention for the division? They did blow out the Falcons, as we discussed earlier.
I'm gonna go with real on this one too. I don't know why not. I mean, the football team lost. They lost Fitzpatrick. Daniel Jones looks trash as usual. Jalen Hurts looks like the much better quarterback. I don't see why they can't compete, even with the Cowboys looking good.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is just Week 1. I think the Cowboys are going to be able to pick them apart. They have a stronger O-line, and I think Jalen Hurts just had a great matchup. I don't think it's going to continue. Next, let's jump to Daniel Jones. Should he be benched? Let's see his stats for the last game. 22-37, 59.5% completion rate, 267 yards, 1 touchdown, but also a fumble, and the Broncos blew out the Giants. It was not close.
My thoughts on this is that it is not just Week 1. However, I do think that you just might as well carry out with Daniel Jones for the rest of the year. They got no other options. Colquay sucks. In my quarterback power rankings, I have Daniel Jones as the 31st ranked quarterback, right in front of Taylor Heineke, who's obviously not even a starter. And I think with Fitzpatrick healthy, he'd be my worst star in the league, and it's not really close. But I think they definitely look to improve in the draft.
Completely agree there with you, Ala. Completely agree there. I think there's no point in benching him now because I think if they keep him in, they'll get a better pick.
Yeah.
For the last second to last one, Aaron Rodgers, is he checked out? He had a passer rating of 36.8, and that would have been better if he just threw into the ground on every play.
This one's the toughest one so far. I think it's just week one, though. It's hard to doubt Aaron Rodgers no matter what drama's going on. He was talking about it, at his interview with Aaron Andrews about the whole situation. He seems like he's blowing it out of proportion or just talking about it too much. A little drama. It's just Aaron Rodgers. And he talks about it as just a game, and honestly, I don't see why they can't rebound. They're a good team. Like, the Packers should be fine.
Yep. He's emotional. He's moody. But I think he cares too much about his legacy.
He's still a top 3 quarterback in the league, no question. And probably
cares too much.
Top 5 all tomorrow.
All right, last one for the day. Are the Saints contenders? There was a lot of talk of them falling off this year with the big loss of talent, a lot of people to pay. Jameis Winston starting. But Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdowns and they won by 35 points to the Packers.
I'm going to go with just week one. I think even though Sean Payton put on a masterclass, I'm not confident in the Packers. Aaron Rodgers looked checked out the entire game. Marshall Lattimore did put up an impressive performance with Devontae Adams, but I just don't believe in James Winston. I need to see more. I'm not doubting them. I just think Super Bowl contenders, I still think they're not even the best team in their division.
I agree. I mean, I think it's just week one. I do think they can be a solid team like people predicted, but Winston is too much of an X factor right now.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up our Just Week 1 segment, sponsored by U.S. Oil and Refinery. Appreciate you guys out there. Stay tuned. Coming back to the main show now. That was a fun little segment. We shout out to U.S. Oil right there. What do you think?
U.S. Oil and Refinery, man. Go get your gas from the right place. Be sure to go to some good locations. 76 U.S.'s Oil. One of the ones, LA.
Yeah.
Shout out to those gas companies, man. Doing God's
I'm
work.
actually a big Tesla guy, but U.S. Oil, I love you. Okay, let's move on. I think another big storyline from this past weekend was the Bears and Sunday night. Matt Nagy looked a bit disoriented out there. I thought a lot of his play calls were just too cute. It's been the trend for the last 3 years, but he just hasn't been able to put it together. They haven't been able to put together a solid offensive roster for 3 years. I think at that point it's time to move on between him and Pace. So what do you think here? Is the solution get rid of Nagy or bench Dalton, or is there any hope for this roster? Because I'm thinking that this roster might be one of the worst in the NFL if you take away Khalil Mack and Justin Fields.
Allen Robinson, I think you should also mention there. I think he's a top 10 receiver. But I don't know. Cole Kmet looked pretty good. The offensive line is terrible. I mean, Jermaine Ifedi should never be starting in the league. I don't know what the heck, how that's still happening. That man is stealing money from teams.
Absolutely.
But you got a point. I mean, Nagy's play calling has not been impressive since his opening year. He went 13-3 with probably the best defense in the league, with undeniable talent, and Akeem Hicks, Eddie Jackson playing like the best player in the league. Khalil Mack was as dominant as usual. They had good corners on both sides, Kyle Fuller. So I don't know how much Nagy's really done for that team. I think you can maybe put Justin Fields in midseason, see how he does with Fields, and if the offense looks more exciting, better, more dynamic, then yeah. But if the Bears don't make the playoffs, I don't see what's the point of keep rolling with Nagy at this point.
I mean, I don't see how the Bears make the playoffs, to be honest. That showing last night was bad. And all those guys you mentioned who are great defensive players, they are, but they're aging. They're all that's 3-4 years ago at this point where they were so dominant. Things have changed. They've lost guys. They've gotten older. They've gotten injured. It's just not that sustainable. And the flip side of that is, you mentioned Jermaine Ifedi. He shouldn't be rostered in the league. Well, he is because they haven't been able to find anyone to replace him. Not to mention the rest of their O-line. So it's just continual problems that aren't getting fixed, and the offense hasn't stepped up for the past 10 years. Not to mention Nagy's years. So I think change might be the way to go. Bring in someone who can really work with Justin Fields, even if Fields isn't ready. I don't know. I'm just not buying it right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. The O-line is a huge issue. I mean, you have Ifedi on one tackle, and then you had Jason Peters, who was fishing, apparently, a couple months into training camp.
Yeah,
I mean, he went
down in the
down.
first.
Yeah,
half,
Charles
I
Leno
believe.
Jr. is gone. You know, the Bears are definitely could finish last in the division with the way that I mean, even with the Lions in the division, I still think they could finish last. And I don't see why keeping Nagy around is any solution to any problems.
Yeah, Nagy overall just unimpressed. Last night was kind of felt like a trial game to me because the Rams are supposed to be one of the better teams in this league. I know it's just week 1, but largely Nagy's system has been in place for these guys for a long time. I know Andy Dalton's new, but he's experienced. I was expecting better all across the board. And to just see them kind of get obliterated by the Rams is not very pleasant to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so let's move on. So the next topic we can talk about here is we'll circle back to the Jaguars. Urban Meyer looked a bit flustered, a bit lost out there. I don't know if you were watching the game, but you could see him on the sidelines, obviously being frustrated. I mean, the guy hasn't lost games like they lost yesterday. Basically, his whole stretching from Florida to Ohio State, and probably before that as well. And they were just getting demolished. I mean, it was known the Jaguars were devoid of talent, but it looks like they're also very unprepared.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I got a question for you though. I think it's funny. Do you think the Jaguars quit on Urban, or Urban quits on the Jaguars first? Because I don't know. Urban's not looking like he's having fun.
Urban is a man of strong, values and strong beliefs that I believe do not go past his outer layer, and actually he will be quitting on the Jaguars if they do not wake up.
I agree. I agree. I think he could leave as early as like week 6.
And I think it's kind of a legacy thing for him too. I think he's trying to see if he can prove himself in this league, which he hasn't done before. And I think if it gets too ugly too quick, I don't think he'll quit mid-season because that would just look